Hey, what's going on YouTube? If this is your first time here, welcome. For the most part, I'm a do-it-yourselfer. My videos contain DIY projects from installing my own solar system to things on my truck, and more recently I've been doing some videos on pew-pews, but it has mostly to do with things that I can do myself and not pay somebody to do them. I am also a pilot, and in this video I am giving you my review of AeroGuard Flight Training Center. Coming up. So real quick, I just want to give you a little bit of my background. I drove a tow truck for 14 and a half years. I didn't really enjoy it. I was good at it, paid the bills, but I didn't really enjoy it. And after a while, I finally figured out what I wanted to do, and that was become a pilot. I am currently at about 800 total time, and I just started a new job flying a Cessna 208 Caravan, flying cargo, charter, and air tours, like Grand Canyon tours. But before this, I was instructing to build time, just like most of us do. And in the process of wanting to become a pilot, of course, I wanted to research a couple of flight schools in order to get my training done. Now you can go Part 61, which you can just work and pay as you go, and that's fine, well and good. But I just didn't want it to take forever. I am 38 years old. I'll actually be 39 in about 2 weeks. And when I started this process, I was 35, so I didn't really have time to waste. So I really wanted to get it done fast and efficiently. When you do Part 61, the lending options are pretty much non-existent. You would have to do personal loans, and I'm sure you're aware by now, flight training is very expensive, and getting personal loans in those dollar amounts is just, it's not going to happen. So you're left with more of the flight training schools, like ATP. ATP is still Part 61, but they require full-time, and they have funding available, as well as AeroGuard. AeroGuard is now Part 141, but they also have more funding options available. And at the time of this video, I want to say the numbers are right around $100,000 to get you from zero all the way to your instructor ratings, your commercial single and your commercial multi, all that stuff. I got 7 ratings, and that was private, instrument, commercial single, then certified flight instructor with instrument, and then commercial multi, and then multi-engine instructor. That's the order that I went through. I do like that order, but it varies for each school, I'm pretty sure. So I did check out ATP. I also checked out ASU's program, going in person to Embry-Riddle, and all of those things. But like I said, I didn't really have time to waste. I also didn't have that much time I could be without a job. I was able to pay for most of my bills while I was in flight training and not working with my 401k from my previous job. But they don't allow you to have a job, which is kind of frustrating, and we'll get to that in a minute. So now I want to get into the review portion of AeroGuard. This first part is going to be from the viewpoint of a student, and then I'm going to review working for them as a flight instructor. So when I went through flight training with AeroGuard, I was Part 61. They have now switched to completely 141. And like I said, they don't allow you to have a job while you are in flight training. And that's kind of where I start to have a problem. For me, I still have a house payment, I still have bills and obligations, so that part makes it hard. There are plenty of other people that have started off in life, and now they are trying to make a career change to becoming a pilot, so that makes it really difficult. But on top of that, you don't know the schedule until 6 p.m. the night before. And it could be that you don't go in until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Or you come in first thing in the morning and have a 6 a.m. flight, you're done by 10, and you have the rest of the day. You could easily fit a job in there, depending on what your study habits are, mind you. But as far as your time commitment, you could fit a job in there. At least I would have been able to. And that is actually my biggest issue with AeroGuard is the scheduling. The scheduling just is, it's challenging. You don't know what you're gonna have the day before. You could have times where you're gonna be off. They advertised, I don't know if they still do it, but when I started, they advertised 8 to 10 months from 0 time. I came in with 60 hours. I tried to get my private before I went into flight training to reduce the amount of time I didn't have a job. It didn't work out. The flight training that I was going to was more of a mom and pop. It's called Scottsdale Executive Flight Training, but there was less structure, so I didn't know what to study. And I can't study what I don't know what I need to study. So that was where the issue was. Like when I go in for a ground, they'd be like, so what do you want to work on? I don't know because I don't know what I'm supposed to be studying. So that's where the challenge was. So when I went to AeroGuard, I just wanted to focus on the knowledge side. I had to learn a new aircraft, which was no big deal. But that's why I didn't have my private going in. So when I got to AeroGuard, mind you, I had already got all my solo time, my solo cross country, my nighttime, all the boxes were checked. I literally just needed to learn a new aircraft and do some grounds to strengthen my knowledge. Well, that was where one of the first disconnects came from. My second flight was across country. I did not need that. I just needed to learn some training and just focus. Like I didn't even want to fly for the first few weeks. I just wanted to focus on the knowledge so that I could get in the, and then get in the plane, knock out my training, and then go to check ride. It literally would have taken me less than a month, and it took 2. Not because of any fault to me, but they have stage checks that they require you to pass. So when you go to stage check, they have a few days before you even get on the list. Then you can finally get your stage check. You have your oral, then you have a couple of days, and then you might have a refresher flight and then another flight. And this process could take up to like 2 weeks or more. I've had students that it took them a month to get through stage check. So the stage checks really hold you up. When I got to instrument, I was able to go through that pretty quick. I went through instrument in about 2.5 months. Then when it came to my commercial rating, that took 2 months, and I could have done it in 1, but I had instructors, like 5 different instructors cancel on me, so it just kept setting me back. My certified flight instructor, that wasn't to the fault of AeroGuard. That was, I went into my instructor in May, and DPEs don't want to come to Phoenix in the middle of the summer because it's really hot. So instead of 6 weeks, that took approximately almost 3 months, I think. And then CFII can be done as quick as 2 weeks. It took me about a month. Again, we had the DPs wanting to come out here, and then I also took a week off in September to go on my camping trip. So I passed my CFII. It was, I believe, September 20th, and then it took me about 2 months to finish my commercial multi and my MEI. Coming in with 60, I was able to finish the program in just a little bit over a year. It was about 1 year and 2 weeks, and I was able to finish the program. So the idea, if you are coming in at 0 and you think you're gonna get done in 8 to 10 months, that is completely inaccurate. It is more than likely it will take you a minimum of 1.5 years. So when I started at AeroGuard, I was given 2 PPL students that were right at their first stage check and ready to solo. This was June when I received these students. Well, come end of October into November, they should have been passed private, but they were finally at their final stage check and getting ready to go to check ride. June to November. And I promise you, at least half of that time, they were sitting. So that's where that's my biggest issue with AeroGuard is scheduling. Scheduling is a big problem. But as far as the training and curriculum are very thorough. For me, flying was the easy part. The knowledge was the hard part. I don't pride myself on being book smart. I don't learn very well by reading. I learn mostly by hands-on videos and stuff like that. If I can watch a video and then do it myself, then I can learn better that way. I don't learn very well by reading. That's where AeroGuard helped me out. AeroGuard, especially now with it being Part 141, they have the ground portion that you will go through and the flight training portion. AeroGuard will hold your hand a little bit more when it comes to that studying. There's still, obviously you still have to study on your own, but they're gonna at least guide you through the process and be like, look, these are things you need to study. I think that was a big help for me. If you are good at learning on your own, you can study on your own, and you don't have any issues with that, and you want to get done fast, that's where I would kind of suggest ATP. ATP has not the greatest reputation, but if you want to get done fast, ATP is the place to go. I've heard plenty of pilots going from 0 to done in 8 to 10 months. But it is cramming like crazy, and you have to be able to study and learn on your own. Their instructors don't get paid for grounds. They only get paid to fly. So they're gonna bail on you any chance they get to fly. They're not gonna wanna do grounds with you. So that is something to keep in mind with ATP. At AeroGuard, and I'll get into this when I get into the instructor side of it, but the instructors are salaried. It doesn't matter if they're doing a ground with you or they're flying. Yes, they do want to fly because they want to get flight hours, but they get paid the same no matter what. So it doesn't matter if they're doing grounds with you. Resource-wise, let's talk about resources. And this kind of plays in between because this is going to be for students and for instructors. Resources. It's more than likely when you go and do a tour of AeroGuard, they're going to show you a plane with a G1000 in it. Well, I'm here to tell you that you are not likely going to see a G1000 until you get to commercial. You'll be doing your private in a standard Archer, which is a 6-pack, steam gauges, whatever you want to call it. It's got the round dials. You'll also be doing instrument in that same airplane. It's not until you get to your commercial single that you'll set foot into a G1000. That's not something that was clear during the tour. Between me starting and touring, it was about 1.5 years. So things could have changed in that amount of time. But it seems like they are still showing students the G1000 and selling them on the idea of G1000. So I want to make sure that you understand that that is not the case anymore. And it doesn't look like they reduced the price. I told many of my students they were sold on the G1000 and they should be demanding a refund because that's not what they're getting, or like a partial refund because they thought they were getting G1000 and they're not. So there should be refund of funds in there. Many of AeroGuard's planes, especially the standard Archers, they are pretty worn out on the inside. Some of them look pretty rough. It seems like they're going through kind of like little by little, one by one, and refurbishing them. But a lot of them are still very run down. But AeroGuard's maintenance is next to none. I mean, they are absolutely awesome. So I never felt unsafe in any of their aircraft. They might be ugly, they might be a little worn out on the inside, but I never felt unsafe in those aircraft. Many of them have air conditioning installed. A lot of times they don't fix it. Sometimes during the summer they will fix it when they get to it. There are still some Archers that do not have AC installed at all, so that can be a little rough. The Archer I feel like is a little bit warmer of a plane when you don't have air conditioning compared to like a Cessna where you have the wings that are up high, but you have the vents that come in up high, so because the angle of the air feels like it's a little bit cooler, whereas the air and the archer come down at your feet. It comes in at your feet. So that air conditioning does make a big difference. You also can't use air conditioning when you're like taking off and landing. You got to turn it off. So when you're doing pattern work, it can get a little bit warm. So also there's been an issue with resource availability, especially when you're assigned for a G1000. The G1, and this is why they went to doing instrument in the standard, is because they don't have as many G1000s as they need. Their local program is really taking off. It's called the Pathway Program, which is most likely why you're here. It's really taking off, and they're getting class sizes of like 30 new Pathway students in a month. They just don't have enough G1000s. And now it's even becoming a problem with standards. They just don't have the resources available. So sometimes they have it double booked, and there are some types of missions that take priority over others, and you may be scheduled to fly and not get to fly because there's no resource available. I foresee it getting worse because they are bringing a Hong Kong program over here. I think it's called Cathaway or something like that, Cathaway Pacific, or it's one of those. And so they're bringing more of those students back over to AeroGuard because of the C word in 2020. Those students, that the program went away and they just didn't have the students anymore. So they're now starting to try and get some of those back, some of those contracts back. But it sounds like, and I don't know any information about this, but I just heard something about AeroGuard now teaming up with ASU to do their flight training and their 141 program, whereas before it was with ATP. So now it seems like AeroGuard has that program. I just foresee there being more issues with resource availability, but I can't confirm that one. So as a student, you will have flight time. You also have sim time. You also have ground time. The sims that AeroGuard uses are FTDs, they're true flights, and they do have Redbirds. They have 3 Redbirds, but only 2 of them are approved for 141 training, and then they also have the true flights. And I cannot figure out how the true flights are approved for flight training. They are the worst things. They are the worst simulators that you can possibly imagine. You will not even touch the controls and all of a sudden it'll go into a 45-degree bank and pitched up 30 degrees. Didn't even touch them. They are absolutely horrendous. FAA, if you watch this video, you need to look into it because those things they're not even anywhere close to flying the aircraft, and they push sims a lot because they're cheaper than the planes. I don't feel like the flight simulators are good for learning to fly the plane. They are good for learning checklists and procedures, especially when it comes to instrument. They're just not good for training because you end up fighting with it more than being able to learn anything. And that's what's really challenging. They really push sims. All right, so they also have stage checks. There's 3 stage checks in private. They have multiple stage checks throughout your training. The idea with stage checks when I was Part 61 is they just want to make sure that you're ready for the next stage, but also ready for check ride. By doing that, they are trying to reduce the amount of failures they have at check ride. It saves them money, saves you money, and just keeps you moving through the program if you're not failing check rides. But you're failing stage checks, and like I said, you could be waiting a week or 2 to get your oral portion of the stage check, then you're another week or 2 to get the flight portion, and God forbid you fail something, then you got to get a retrain, and then you got to get back on the list for stage checks. So when it comes to stage checks, those can really hold you up. On one aspect, they are helpful, hopefully prevent you from failing any sort of check rides, and those are the important things that you just don't want to be failing are check rides. So at this point, it does sound like I'm more negative than positive with AeroGuard. They do have their upsides. Like I said, their maintenance, I really trust their maintenance. Their program is actually pretty thorough. They have a really good training outline to follow. I think it's still a decent program. Just if you go into it with the mindset that you are not going to get done quickly, you would probably be just fine. Just being aware of that and being ready to accept that. I think that would help out. So I am able to do this video now because I no longer work for AeroGuard. I'm not a student there and I'm not instructing there, so I am able to do this video. They would be pretty frowny if I was doing this video and I still worked for them. Unfortunately, I can't show you any footage flying in the aircraft because they don't allow cameras. They don't want us taking pictures or video or anything like that in the plane. That's for safety, but it's also because they don't want us putting anything negative online, obviously. So, but I have every right to be able to do this video now. So let's get on to the instructor portion of it from the viewpoint of an instructor. So I finished my training in November of 2021. At the time, AeroGuard had a wait list for the instructors. So I had to wait to get a job offer from them. In the meantime, I went and instructed at Fly Eagle Sport in a Remos GX. That plane looks like a Cessna and a Diamond had a baby. It was fun. The guy Tyler over there was really, he was great. He was willing to work with me. The day that I interviewed with Tyler was the last time that I saw my dad alive, and I went and visited him in the hospital. He died of November 29th of 2021, which actually, as of the day that I'm recording this video, that was a year yesterday. Tyler went through essentially the exact same thing, essentially a month prior to me going through it. He lost his dad to COVID in October. Tyler, I hope you don't mind me sharing that, but that was what was so amazing about going through that is he could have easily been like, hey, if you don't accept this job or whatever, we're going to move on to the next person. He would reach out to me just to see how I was doing, just to check on me. That spoke worlds of his character. So the fact that he was willing to give me a chance with no previous instruction experience was great. I instructed from January of 2022 to April of 2022 when I got the offer from AeroGuard to come and instruct there. The reason I left Fly Eagle Sport to go to AeroGuard is because I wanted the opportunity to hopefully get more flight hours, obviously, but it was more about the experience. At Fly Eagle Sport, it was just private students and sport pilot. At AeroGuard, I had the opportunity to get private, instrument, and commercial, and then eventually I would get into the multi. They didn't do the stands for multi right away, but it just depends on their workload and how quick they can get you standardized and all that stuff. So I decided to go to AeroGuard so I get a variety of experience. They are salaried. They pay, at the time of this video, they pay $33,500. And that works out to be $1,288 every 2 weeks. So that's per paycheck. Now you're scheduled for 5 10-hour shifts with potentially breaks in there. There were many days that I maybe only got a 30-minute break, and that got eaten up quickly by ramping in and debriefing. So that meant many days without getting a lunch at all. Now for me, it's not that big a deal because like I said, I drove a tow truck for 14 and a half years, and driving a tow truck, you don't get a lunch. So I was already used to that, but somebody else that is not used to that, it might be an issue. So if you do the math, that's 100 hours per paycheck. That works out to be an average of $12.88 per hour. I have emailed management and the people that are in charge of pay, and their response is that their pay is comparable to other flight schools, which is a complete lie. So when you compare it to the amount of hours that you're scheduled and working, it is not comparable to other areas where you'd be instructing. So a little perspective, I was making about the same amount at Fly Eagle Sports that I am at AeroGuard, but that I was at AeroGuard. At AeroGuard, I was working 2.5 times more per week. At Fly Eagle Sport, I was working about 20 hours a week. At AeroGuard, 50, and making the same amount. So for them to say that it is comparable is, I guess, true in an aspect. So for average, I believe for flight instructors, anywhere from 25 to 40. I don't know. I don't have any exact numbers, but before I got into this, those are kind of the numbers I was finding. It's about 30 to 35-ish, somewhere in there. It's not unusual. But at AeroGuard, you're also working a whole lot more. So 50 hours a week versus other places where you're working 20 to 30 to make the same amount. Their excuse is, well, you're getting flight time. You're also getting paid when you cancel a flight for weather. So those are some of the excuses that they gave. But other flight schools, you can typically build more flight hours. I don't agree with that. They could easily hire people, because there are people that either can't fly because of medical or they don't want to. They could easily hire just ground instructors that could do the simulator stuff and do the ground portions, and then we could just focus on flying, but they did not do that. So when you talk about the hours worked compared to the pay, it's not great. They will also try and tell you that if you have a problem student that, or a student that you're just not jiving with, that happens. Not everybody's personality gets along with others. I'm not a people person. That's why I want to fly cargo. They will tell you that when you have a student, that you can go to them and they will make every attempt to move that student to another instructor. Likewise, students, if you have an issue with that instructor, they will try and move you to another instructor. Lie. Complete lie. They will not do that. I had a student that no matter what I did, he was having difficulties, challenges. I've tried different things, and I've gone to management multiple times, and I suggested them trying to move him because maybe our personalities just didn't mesh. Maybe something I was doing just wasn't working. Their response was, well, you can't just pawn off a difficult student. I guess that's kind of what I was trying to do, but it's not exactly, because I've tried different things with him and none of it was working. Just don't think that that student was motivated. But how they handled it was not how they say they will. As an instructor, again, it's the same thing. We don't know our schedule until about 5 or 6 p.m. the night before. So we could have to be there at 4 a.m. the next morning, or it could be 4 p.m. the next day. You don't know. And on top of that, you are scheduled for missions. You are scheduled for particular missions in order. And they have to go in order because it's Part 141. So if the day before it canceled because of weather, or they unsatisfactorily completed it or incompleted or whatever, you have to complete that mission before moving on. Well, management bids for the schedule each day, and they're going to bid for the next mission in the assumption that you completed it. Well, a lot of times they're not checking that stuff. Even if it was a couple of days prior, sometimes they don't check that. And then they just schedule you for the next mission. So now you have to do management's job by making sure that it's the correct mission. And then you have to also do dispatch's job to make sure that they're doing stuff that they're supposed to. But I was hired as an instructor, but I have to do management's and dispatcher's jobs all at the same time for the terrible salary of less than somebody that makes at McDonald's. Let's talk flight time, because I'm sure you're curious how instructors do at AeroGuard when it comes to flight time. For me, I can't speak for every instructor, but for me, I was averaging about 50 to 55 flight hours per month. My best month at AeroGuard was 72 flight hours, but I had 4 engine break-ins in that month. And when you do an engine break-in, you need to get 4.0 on the maintenance hobs, which usually means that the billing hobs or your flight hobs is around 4.4 to 4.6, somewhere in there. So take those 4 maintenance flights out of there, and I'm down to the 55-hour mark. So the flight hours weren't really building all that fast, and for me, I'm not built to instruct, and not everybody is. You see on a lot of forums or Facebook groups or whatever, and people will post their total time. They're brand new commercial pilot. They're looking for work or guidance or suggestions or whatever, and everybody always said, get your CFI. Well, I'm sorry, but not everybody is cut out for instructing. I don't feel like I was cut out for it because I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't the best instructor. I feel like that's why I left to go and do something else. For one, I wanted a different type of experience. For two, I felt like I was doing my students a disservice by just being there. Like, let them fly with an instructor that's a lot more passionate, that enjoys it. As an instructor, it's not something that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed it more when they got a little bit more experience, but when it came to like a private pilot, it gets repetitive. And especially when you have 3 or 4 private students, it really starts to wear on you. So I just felt like that I needed to move on. That's why I looked for something and was able to find something flying a Caravan. I'm getting turbine PIC. You can see that I have 4 stripes here, and that's just because I'm technically a captain, although it's just I say just a Caravan captain, so it's not anything crazy, but yes, technically I am a captain. It is fun to say that I am a captain, but it's just a Caravan, so it's nothing crazy. But as far as instructing at AeroGuard, we can mention the resources again. I felt very safe. I did several engine break-ins for AeroGuard, which was great. I don't have any issues there. The seats in some of the planes get pretty worn out. There are definitely some big people in the world. I am not one of them. I'm 5'10" and about 132 pounds. And sitting in one of those sunken, worn out seats gets uncomfortable, especially when you got bars digging into your sides. I got no cushion back there, so the cushion from the seat's all I got. And then when it's gone, the bars get very uncomfortable. But if you're looking to instruct at AeroGuard, be mindful that it is not very good money. Lots of hours, but not as many flight hours as you might think, being scheduled 200 hours a month. For me, I knew that the pay was going to hurt for about 5 years. I am making about half, or at least I was making about half of what I was driving a tow truck, and so I knew what I was getting into. It seems like AeroGuard is putting a whole bunch of money in dressing up the school. They're trying to bring people in and make it look pretty, but they didn't seem to want to increase the pay of the flight instructors, which was a little bit disheartening. If you move into another area, then you can get a raise. The stands instructors or stage check instructors, they did get a raise, so I believe it bumps it up to a salary of 45. Don't quote me on that because I don't know for sure because I wasn't a stage instructor. There was also a bump in pay if you became part of that Chinese program or I think. Don't criticize me, I don't know my geography that great. I think Hong Kong is part of China or Hong Kong's its own thing. I'm not sure. But it's the Cathaway program. There was a 20% pay bump for being part of that program and a guaranteed 80 flight hours a month. I said that I'm interested, give me more information, and crickets. I heard nothing. I finally went to the manager and I said, hey, I haven't heard anything, what's going on? Oh, we have all the pilots that we need for that. Thanks for letting me know. So that was another issue that I had. Like, I tried to get into another area to where I could make it a little bit more sustainable, like to where I could afford to stay there a little bit longer, but they didn't seem to want to work with me. Perhaps it's because of the email that I sent about the pay. Who knows? I don't know. When you make waves, you're not well liked. So while I was editing this, there was one more thing that I did want to add in there as far as how AeroGuard treated the instructors. So when I did go into training for this new job flying the Caravan, I was still at AeroGuard and I was trying to help them get my students through to check ride that were right there. They were at final stage check and I did not want to set them back. So I was trying to work with scheduling so that I could stay there long enough to sign them off to go to check ride. Otherwise, that would set them back having to fly with a new instructor and getting that instructor comfortable with signing off on that student. AeroGuard didn't want to play ball. They did not want to budge. They said that I had to make a choice. What did you think I was going to pick? So that was another issue that I did have with AeroGuard. I think that they should have been a little bit flexible so that they didn't set the student back, but that is not my call. And it seemed like that they were totally fine setting the student back, which I think is unfortunate for the student. So yeah, that $33,500 per year was, it was really hurting. And in just a few short months, my credit card was nearly maxed because I made enough from AeroGuard to pay my house payment and utilities and all that stuff, but like gas, food, cell phone, all the tiny stuff was just going on my credit card. And it was just going up and up and up and up. And believe it or not, I don't make that much from YouTube. I make less than $300 a month. I am not growing that fast, so my income from YouTube is not enough to help with that very much at all. So now that I am over where I am, I have the ability to make more money than I was at AeroGuard and work less. So working less, I'll make more, and if I were to work the same amount of days, still working less, but because I get paid by the day, I would be able to make more than I was at AeroGuard. It's still not a ton of money, but I'm not instructing anymore. I'm getting turbine PIC time and have the ability to make a little bit more money so that I can hopefully last a little bit longer. I know that this video was pretty rambly. If you made it through this whole thing, congratulations. If I missed anything or if you have any more questions, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Give this video a like, it helps us out. Check out my other videos for other DIY projects. If you use any of my Amazon links in any of those videos, even if you don't buy the product that you clicked on and you make an order within, I think, 24 hours, I get credit for whatever you buy. It doesn't cost you anything more, but it does help the channel out just a little bit. I guess if you come back, we will catch you on the next one. See ya.